Well, hey everybody. We're back. Just when you thought it was safe, we have returned. This is the Atheist Experience. We are live December the 9th, 2001. I'm your host, Martin Wagner. My co-host is Mr. Ashley Perrien.
Hello.
This show is sponsored by Atheist Community of Austin. We are a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. ACA holds weekly meetings every Sunday morning at Hot Jumbo Bagels, 307 West 5th Street, between Guadalupe and Lavaca, that's downtown, except for the first Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series at First Cafeteria North Cross Mall. That opens up at about 11, and I suppose our next lecture will be January, I think it's the 6th.
I don't even know the date.
Okay, well, there we are. It'll be the first Sunday in January. Bagel shop meetings are open to all atheists, agnostics, unbelievers, atheist-friendly persons. They are not open to people of atheistic bent. These are just strictly social gatherings for unbelievers. But the lecture series at FERS are open to the general public. Now let me see. What else is there? ACA has several other little social gatherings that we do. Godless Gamers meet every Monday night at 6 p.m. at the home of Jeff D. and Manda.
Actually, that has now changed to 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, so there's no more.
They have dropped the potluck.
No potluck.
So don't show up at 7 or 6.
That's 6, okay.
Show up at 7.
So no one potlucking? Or?
Well, it started off with a lot of people and then it died down.
Tapered off.
And so now not too many people show up.
All right, well that's 7 and
gaming at 7.
Yeah, all right. Well that's always a lot of fun. And then Wednesday nights they're still having happy hour, I do believe.
Yes.
At Antonio's. When do people turn? 7:30?
I believe people start showing up around 7:30 or so. It's a corner of 183 and 35, southbound on 35. Right in that intersection, like say people around 7:30, 8 o'clock, something like that.
Okay. All right. So that's happening. A couple new announcements for everyone. Jeff D., the former host of this program, is now hosting a brand new internet radio show called The Non-Profit Show. You know, profit being spelled P-R-O-P-H-E-T. And that premiered actually yesterday on the atheistnetwork.com website. That's an internet radio show. Your web browser will need the Real Player plugin to hear the show. And it runs from 1 to 3 p.m. It's a 2-hour show.
Actually, no, it's not. It's 1 hour. I'm not too sure of the exact. I want to say 2 to 3, maybe.
Okay, I heard 1 to 3, and it's on the schedule.
2 to 3. It's 1 hour now. I think that's changed.
Okay.
So.
Well, whatever. Check this.
For at least the time being.
Yeah. You can go to atheistnetwork.com, and they have an actual schedule thing. Oh, we changed it. Okay. 2 hours was too long. 2 hours too much. Okay, so it's 2 to 3 then. Saturday afternoons on atheistnetwork.com, and that's a really neat atheist radio website. A lot of really good shows, a few shows that I don't like too much, but dang it, we moved in to make it all better, didn't we? So that's hosted by Jeff and co-hosted by Vic Farrow, Saturday afternoons, lots of fun. The annual ACA Winter Solstice Party is taking place this coming weekend, Saturday the 15th at 6 p.m., starting at 6 p.m., at the home of Russell Glasser and Ginny. If you want information on how to get there, talk to Russell. And let's see, but that's always probably going to be a ton of fun. There will be, hijinks, probably some amusing Christian movies to snicker at. And, there we are. Russell has gladly put up his address there for people to write for directions to the party if they so desire. Okay. So let's see, let's move on. Okay, if you want more information on ACA, well, you can call our voicemail at 371-2911 or visit our lovely website at atheist-community.org. Speaking of our website, this program here, for those of you who are new viewers, or even if you've watched a few times, this is a live call-in program, as you may be well aware. Steve, let's get our website address up there now, please. But our website has on it a frequently asked questions page, our FAQ page. You can just go to atheist-community.org, click on FAQ, and you'll see a list of questions. And these tend to be the most commonly asked questions that we get most frequently on this show from callers, Christian callers, who are sort of unclear on the concept of what it is that atheists think about stuff. And in fact, just last week, we had a guy trying to, very arrogantly, I thought, bring up this old saw about how atheism is just another religion.
Okay,
Yeah, which is I think is
that along with half the other calls are usually covered on the fact.
Yeah, a lot of them are. Many of the questions are called. And of course, calling atheism a religion is like calling baldness a hair color, right? So that's kind of that old song. Anyway, but check that fact page, because if those of you who are unfamiliar with atheists and atheism in the first place, and you're tuning in and you see our sign, and you're aghast, and you don't know what this is all about, well, check us out. There we are. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, and I had a want to deal with some old business quickly before we go over to the news. Michelle forwarded me a phone call that came into the voicemail. One viewer wanted to know last week where I got all these awesome Thomas Jefferson quotes that I was spewing. Well, the easy answer is I got them from Jeff, right? I mean, he gave me all of his notes.
Yeah, but I assume he got them. He didn't make them up.
No. These are actually, there's several sources around and about, and I believe some of the ones that, many of them were written in personal letters from Jefferson to various people. And they are quoted in, one of them came from a book called Jefferson's Works, Volume 2 of that. These are the kind of books that you see in, PCL and those big volumes for scholarly purposes. These great men, they collect all of their personal papers and what have you. And so these are mostly from personal letters that Jefferson wrote to his various correspondents. I believe I read a quote that from a letter that he wrote in 1813 to a fellow named Baron von Humboldt. Jefferson wrote a very well-known letter. I don't think I read a quote from to a Reverend Mr. Miller, who was writing Jefferson asking for some sort of official governmental recognition of prayer or something. The kind of thing that we're getting every day today now. We're getting, all of these we want to have the Ten Commandments in the public and prayer schools and this and that and the other. And I think that what Reverend Mr. Miller represented, I believe, a Baptist congregation who wanted to have some sort of a public day of prayer or day of religion or some sort of recognition of religion. And Jefferson wrote in reply to Mr. Miller, he wrote, quote, "I consider the government of the United States as interdicted, or interdicted? Interdicted. One of those. By the Constitution, or prevented is what the word means, by the Constitution from meddling with religious institutions, their doctrines, disciplines, or exercises. But it is only proposed that I should recommend, not prescribe, a day of fasting and praying. That is, I should indirectly assume to the United States an authority over religious exercises which the Constitution has directly precluded them from." So this is what he's saying. You're basically asking me to do something I can't do. You're asking me for this endorsement, and the Constitution has prevented that. "Everyone must act according to the dictates of his own reason, and mine tells me that civil powers alone have been given to the President of the United States and no authority to direct the religious exercises of his constituents." So this is basically what, for those of you who don't get it, separation of church and state is all about. It's all about the government doesn't have any business telling you what your religion should be or how you should practice your religion if you have one. It certainly doesn't have any right to, tell non-religious people that they have to be religious, but that, I think, is actually the smaller concern. Separation of church and state, from an infringement standpoint, in my opinion, is a much stronger concern for the religious community, not so much for atheists. For atheists, things like, Ten Commandments and, or prayer in school or Ten Commandments in the courts and what have you, I guess it's kind of insulting. It's a nuisance, though, really more than anything else. It's a nuisance. Where it stands to be an infringement, though, is where you have a person of another religion, not that religion, walking into this courtroom or into some government building of a government that is ostensibly supposed to represent everyone equally, and going, there's this document from the Christian Bible. I'm not a Christian. I belong to this faith.
Yeah.
And so I'm not being respected here. They're telling me that they like this faith better than mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's some people just refuse to understand that distinction.
And also it goes on because most people assume that everybody is Christian. And when they say everybody is Christian, they assume my form of Christianity.
Right.
And
Rick Perry, I think we all pray to the same God. Well, Buddhists would be very happy, would be very interested to hear that.
Yeah.
The letter to the editor I saw last night, one of the Fox News programs. Fox News channel, for those of you who don't know. It's this arch conservative. It's the most conservative of all news channels. But there's this whiny letter to the editor from some lady saying, What about Christians' rights? I think we ought to form the Christian civil liberties unions because we don't have any rights, and I think we should have rights. It's like, lady, you know, you have rights. You have the same rights as everyone else. What you don't have, what Christians don't have, are special rights, okay? And when Christians want to have their religious documents, quotations from their holy book, you know, put up in public places as opposed to quotations from other holy books.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what they're asking for are special rights.
Yes.
They're asking for special privileges being granted to their religion at the expense of others.
Yes.
Okay?
Let's put my words up there, but not your words.
Well, one guy asked me, he said, well, why don't we put up, you know, things from every... It's like, that'd take up the whole damn court bill. You know, there's, what, 2,000 at least active religions in the world. And so, I don't know, people don't get it. The idea is, okay, that the government, it's none of the government's business. Your private life, your religious beliefs, your faith, or lack thereof, it's none of the government's business what you do in your life. Privately, it's none. It's just not. Government has no right to stick its nose in it, and that is what separation of church and state is all about. Separation of church and state is not about suppressing religion, it's about protecting it, okay? And if you don't get it, I'm sorry to hear that, but it's very true. So you're misdirecting your concerns. Anyway, enough of that. That's opening announcements. How about, we are still sort of in our, I want more volume? Okay, I've been told to, having a little technical difficulties as usual, so I have to project, I'm told, and be louder in my speech, so that shouldn't be hard. We're still going through our tryout period for new co-host. Jeff Dees left the program, as I'm sure you will know by now, and we've had a bunch of really wonderful and talented ACA members step up to the plate and offer their services to the show, coming on the air. And this week is Mr. Ashley Perrien. He's been one of our stalwart crew members for many, many moons and has come on the show today to help out. And he has news for us.
The news of the day.
What is up in the world?
Okay, first thing we went over today was separation of church and state. And I have a counterpoint for you.
Have you, though?
I definitely do.
Whoa.
September 11th response was strong message to civil libertarians. This is by Representative John Hostetler. Whatever.
Okay.
Representative of what and who and where we haven't. I can't tell from the article.
State or the party or anything.
No, it doesn't have anything on there. But what it does have, and let's see if we can find the hidden message and the bias in here, shall we?
Okay.
Before September 11th, the efforts of civil libertarians to stamp out public expression of religion seem misguided and decisive, but perhaps not entirely relevant to the busy activities of our daily lives.
Okay, right there, he's got it all wrong. Right there, he's got it wrong. It's not, civil libertarians, okay, we're not about stamping out public displays of religion.
Yes.
It was about preventing government sponsorship. Can we get that concept clear? Because apparently they need it. It's about government sponsorship of one religion over others. That's clear. That's what's presented by the Constitution. If some nitwit wants to stand on a street corner, yelling Bible verses and holding up a big cross and, or setting himself on fire or doing whatever they want to do, that's legal. That's freedom of speech. It's government sponsorship.
Maybe I should cut this short. That was just the first sentence.
Oh my God! I'm not going to interrupt you every sentence, but it just steams my butt.
It goes on.
Well, it just steams my butt.
Yes.
When they deliberately misrepresent what separation of church and state is about, because they have an agenda, which is the government. Which is the government's job is religious indoctrination.
Yes.
And that's what we just blew up a whole bunch of people in Afghanistan against. Okay.
Yes. Okay, that changed as we watch a handful of deluded murderers take the lives of thousands of Americans, men, women, and children, in cold blood. In that instant, Americans... Now here's where it switches over to the new bias. In that instant, Americans turned to their faith for comfort and understanding, often in very public ways. A national response to the infamous day revealed how out of touch the American Civil Liberties Union and its allies are as they pursue their destructive and intolerant agenda.
Who is this idiot? Because I want to send him an email.
Yes, let's see.
Hofstetter.
Our
right?
Representative, John Hostetler.
Okay, all right.
Again, where that is, I have no clue.
Well, what were these terrorists deluded by?
Apparently...
They were deluded by
secular things.
No. The terrorists were deluded by religious faith. They were deluded by this belief that they would do this and they would go to heaven and they would have hundreds of virgins peeling them grapes and doing whatever else it is that virgins do up there. And the letter, the 5-page letter that was found in the belongings of Muhammad Atta, they found this document.
Yeah.
And it had like all the prayers.
Yeah, like 80 references to God.
88 references to God in 5 pages.
Yeah.
So it's, so you're right. Again, and now this is the bias of our religion is right, theirs is wrong, blah, blah, blah.
Yes, and we should have prayer in this country.
Okay, I'm going to shut up now. It's just, just forgive me, but it's just, this is just one of those
I was
things.
reading over this and kind of fuming. Across this vast nation, in every city, township, and village, at schools, workplaces, churches, and homes, the people of the United States responded to the atrocities of September 11th with a shared, spontaneous, and heartfelt prayer. Banners and marquees, vigils and ceremonies all proclaimed a nation's appeal to God. Okay, so there's a little bit of bias in there.
Yeah, ask
just
him
the language
while you're appealing to him, ask him why he didn't stop it.
Yeah, really.
He knew it was coming, why didn't he stop it? He's omniscient. Why didn't he stop it? Why didn't he prevent it? That's the only appeal I have.
Shortly after the attacks at a school in California, the ACLU learned the hard way that Americans don't have much patience with those who would distort the U.S. Constitution and restrict the First Amendment rights of others. Now let me just, one more sentence here or two.
Just in case we need to pull it.
Yeah, it's going to come in handy. It's going to come in handy.
We'll just...
The framers of our Constitution, he said, never understood that it was the role of politicians to tell us what day to pray or in what day we ought to pray particularly hard. That was actually somebody who was against it here.
Oh, that was somebody rebutting.
Yes, that was somebody rebutting.
Okay, was it the... Oh, okay.
Doesn't really say.
That's right.
History exposes that as a lie. The U.S. Congress in 1789 unanimously approved a resolution asking President George Washington to proclaim a day of public thanksgiving and prayer on the same day as it passed the final version of the Bill of Rights. But the point is that Lynn and his cohorts have not changed their stripes. That's the ACLU people.
Well, Lynn is actually with, Barry Lynn is with Americans United for Separation of Church and State.
Okay, all right.
And he is actually a Christian reverend. He's a minister.
Yeah. They remain as willing to ever to distort our history and Constitution to silence all public expressions of religion.
All right.
Bollocks.
Let's have a little bit of remedial history 101. I'm sorry?
What year was the Bill of Rights ratified?
Okay, the Bill of Rights, I do believe, was 1789?
That's what it says here, at least.
Yeah.
Was that before or after the Congress opened for the prayer?
It kind of sounds like it all happened at the same time, according to this.
We will get that information. We're being asked exactly when it was the Bill of Rights was ratified. I've heard there is a honor fact page. There's a little something about that in the America as a Christian Nation claim. But we will get that information specifically. We'll get the information on exactly what took place during the Continental Congress at that meeting when the Bill of Rights was ratified. Anyway, here we go. I just wanted to reply to this uneducated fool who is holding public office that founding fathers, and here's what a couple of them had to say about, which again, these are so helpful because they come up and, okay, now, all the founding fathers, we're not trying to claim that these founding fathers were atheists, all right?
No.
Many of them were Christians. Some of them are Christians. Some of them were deistic, which means that they had this sort of, natural religion, kind of like pantheism. However, regardless of what their personal religious convictions were, they very purposefully set up a constitution, and you can get a copy here yourself and read it, any place, that avoided religious, governmental interference in religion. Okay, here's what the First Amendment to the Constitution says. Okay, just so you know. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Now, of course, what that means is government cannot censor individual citizens of their own accord from expressing their religious faiths. And yet, at the same time, the government cannot, as a body, endorse a religion over another religion, or any religion in particular, because there are a number of religions being practiced in this country. So it's very clear here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion that says we can't endorse any of them, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. In other words, we can't tell you not to join whichever one you please. That's what it means. So This Hofstadter nitwit is getting an email from me, I'll tell you right now. Anyway. And I'll probably get a nice little form letter back, which they all send.
Yes, thank you for your support.
Yeah. You have to understand something. Guys like Hofstadter have, well, first off, they're projecting, right? Okay, they're saying that the ACLU, they have this agenda. These are the guys with the agenda. These guys, pure and simple, pretty much want to Talibanize America. That's what they want to do, okay? And in fact, there are movements afoot. There's something called the Christian Reconstructionist movement, which is a misnomer because, of course, America was never constructed specifically, Christian-like in the first place. But it's all about, it's a very Taliban-like, very strict adherence. They want the Constitution scrapped, basically, and strict adherence to Old Testament law.
Yeah.
Of put in place. In fact, we read about last week, Bush has appointed some guy to a cabinet position who has ties to one of these groups.
Yes, he was formerly like a chair or something like that, isn't it?
Now these guys are so radically fringe, I don't think that they have, at least yet, have a possibility of getting their little thing all in place. But anyway, but just to let all the confused folks out there know, that what the Constitution was set up to do was to protect all religious faiths. This was not set up just to be, America is now this exclusive members-only Christian country club. That's not what it was for. I'm going to shut up now. Actually, I was going to shut up 5 minutes ago, but I'm going to shut up now. Because you have news.
Well, that is enough of the church-state separation, at least for the moment.
Right.
Possibly more later.
All right.
Right now, what we have is Canadian churches may face insolvency. What happened, apparently, is in the early days, I'm going to want to say late 1800s up until, mid-19s or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and summarize this. Makes it a little bit easier than reading it. The churches and the Canadian government, church and state in Canada agree that the schools, part of systematic plans devised by the federal government and carried out by the churches to assimilate Native children, were painful failures and that former students deserve restitution. So basically, the government said you have to go to these religious schools if you're a native to Canada because you are a heathen and you don't follow a religion. And so that's what they did all this time.
Uh-oh.
And so basically everyone now agrees. Everyone now agrees that this was just a really bad idea.
Whoa. Yeah.
And the dispute now pits government against the churches as they argue over how much will each pay in legal settlements, which they say could add up to billions of dollars.
Boy. Which could throw all these churches in the poorhouse.
Yes, the article starts with, the diocese waited, but salvation didn't come. Instead came an inquiry from the Canadian government asking the Anglican Diocese of Caribou the list of value of its assets, church buildings, paintings, silver, liturgical instruments, and perhaps the bishop's ring.
Oh! Man,
what might the graveyard adjacent to the churches be worth? They're getting value of all this stuff so that if they have to, they can make the church sell it, get the money, and give it back to the people. That they tortured.
They forcibly converted.
Forcibly converted.
Ooh.
The government's demand was part of a growing legal battle involving thousands of lawsuits filed against Canadian government over physical, emotional, cultural, and sexual abuses of Native children who were forced to attend church-run schools decades ago. In many of the cases, it spread the liability bills around. The government named as co-defendants the Anglican, Roman Catholic, United, and Presbyterian churches. So basically, they brought the churches in with them to help them foot the bills. It's looking good for us.
Okay.
True, but at least they're seeing things are not going well.
Well, yeah. See, here's the thing. Okay, I mean, we're not here like trying to let's got to stamp out religion and all this. No. I mean, we're not like
if you want to believe it, good.
But. Yeah, it's our concern. Okay, is that the government simply has to retain a completely. Now, this is Canada, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, but this is not all about this. That's another distortion that they make. Is that you guys just want to stamp out religion everywhere. And I say no. Look, we respect people's rights. Okay, as individual citizens, we just want to make sure that the government doesn't stick its nose in it and start creating an atmosphere to where it's like this group's better than that group.
Yeah.
This group gets special dispensations and that all the other groups don't.
Yeah.
And when you have government endorsement of one particular religion over the other 2,000 of them out there, then that's what you get, is that kind of unfairness, and when our government is supposed to be representative of all the citizens. Anyway.
And I don't actually have the quote in here. I cut it out to shorten this stuff up, but they did have a quote in this article saying that you don't need. It was basically some bishop or priest or whatever saying we don't need, all of these buildings and fancy, doohickeys to keep our religion alive. Give us a wine cup and we'll be happy.
Right.
So basically they're just saying, you will not stamp us out.
Yeah.
So,
well,
and like I say, that's fine. If like I say, if people want to believe that, that's perfectly fine. Just don't push it on us.
Yeah.
So, let's skip over that one for right now.
Okay.
And go to this one. A pastor blames demon for woman's death.
Okay.
Auckland pastor Luke Lee yesterday blamed a demon for killing one of his followers 6 days after it had been driven out of her body. But Lee, who is accused of manslaughter, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Predicted in court for a second time that there would be a miracle and Joanna Lee, no relation, would rise from the dead.
Okay, so let me think. Okay, keep reading. I'm starting to I'm connecting the dots here.
Okay. There are more dots to come. The prophesied resurrection is due to occur before December 10th, which I think is tomorrow, the next day?
That's tomorrow morning.
Okay.
He has about, 8 hours? Or 7 hours, right? It's 5 p.m. Oh, of course. This is where? Where is this?
Auckland.
Auckland, so that's New Zealand. So it's already tomorrow over there. So his time's up.
Well, the day's not over yet.
Ah, okay.
So we still got time. I beg you to give me more time until this happens. Lee told Justice Patterson and jury in the High Court at Auckland.
Okay.
Lee 38, blah, 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 blah.
How did this woman die?
Okay, let's see. It was down here somewhere. The demon who was expelled out of her came back to her and killed her again, told jury. Where is it now? I have this.
Yeah, well, what precise event led to her demise? Yeah.
The Crown says that Lee strangled Miss Lee during an aggressive deliverance and bounced on her stomach and chest, trying to physically force the demons out of her mouth.
Well, I'm sure he forced something out of her mouth.
Yeah, and basically she was screaming and crying in pain, begging for her life. And
so
that's the devil speaking. Don't listen to it.
All right, so what happened is this Auckland pastor trampled a woman to death.
Yes.
Okay. And says that this demon did it.
Yes, to get the demon out, because you see, he stomped on her and killed her. And he said that he and his followers prayed for her over the following days, and she came back to life. To some degree.
Okay, wait a minute.
To some degree, she survived.
Yeah, okay, so...
The demon who was expelled out of her came back to her again and killed her.
Okay. So,
Lee quoted extensively from the scriptures to explain and justify what he'd done.
This is not like, okay, it's appalling. This woman had this horrible death, didn't deserve to die.
Of course.
But just, okay, I can understand this taking place in like the 11th century, but not the 21st.
Yeah.
Okay, that's shameful. All right.
So. Well,
this guy's toast. I hope he goes to jail forever.
Yeah, he acknowledged that twice already he had made predictions that Miss Lee, a 38-year-old Korean visitor, would return to life, but only for those prophecies not to be fulfilled. This was because God was delaying her return to test his faith. Twice God had told him that.
That sneaky God guy?
Yeah.
Don't, I'm just messing with you. Thought she's gonna come back to life? Nope. Sorry, gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm just messing with you.
But God told me again that the miracle will happen in December this year, so.
What a fool.
Still got time.
Okay.
He's already predicted it twice. This is the third time, so.
Off he goes to
where
murderers all go. Okay, anything else? Anything more?
That is the main stuff. If we have
we're
time, I can always.
Well, that was all kinds of fun, actually. Thanks very much. Now, this is, of course, a live call-in show. I guess we can throw up that number on the screen for us to call. It is 477-2288. We're live. Let's see. Say if you want to ask us questions, ask us about what atheism is about, or challenge us on some opinions or what have you, you're certainly free to do that. Let me see, what else do we have? I had another question from a viewer last week asking about the, here's another Jefferson quote I can read. Asking about the article that I talked about on last week's show where there is a research paper in which it is demonstrated pretty conclusively that Israelis and Palestinians have a nearly identical genetic
makeup,
right? And this research paper was asked by various people in power to be suppressed. It's like, no, don't publish that because it'll cause a big stink. And so there's a lot of controversy over that. This whole suppression of scientific research, political reasons. Now, of course, they have a the phone's lit up like a Christmas tree. I bet we got people. We got them all fascinated today. Okay. Well, anyway, that caller wanted the specific article that I read excerpts from. I have the article here today. And I'll just read the first couple sentences to give everyone an overview of it. But I did email the link for the article itself to that caller, so you should have that fairly soon. But anyway, what it's all about is there's this keynote research paper showing that Middle Eastern Jews and Palestinians are genetically almost identical, and it has been pulled from a leading journal.
Let alone the fact that they're genetically similar also to white Caucasians and black Africans,
I mean, we all come from
and chimps and probably fish.
Yeah, we all come from the same trough, but I mean, the point is, but here, of course, you have these two groups that are like diametrically opposed to each other and everything. I mean, they couldn't hate each other more.
Gotta find any.
But there's a thing, Human Immunology was the journal that the article was already printed in, and they're going to the extent of asking people who have already received the journal to tear the article out of it, throw it away. Yes. Really, really bizarre. So yeah, I mean, believe me, I can understand people being very antsy and nervous about the political situation over there and not wanting to ruffle any more feathers than have already been ruffled. But let's face it, I mean, they get a car bomb over there every day, and people, it's just like, I mean, how could it? Well, it could get worse, but and we don't want it to get worse. But still, there's a very legitimate controversy that has arisen, all about just the suppression of the scientific research. I mean, the scientific research is apolitical. It's all about. Okay, before we have some callers lined up, and before we take them, I just want to read this one other
TJ quote.
No, yeah, there's a Thomas Jefferson quote. Again, talking about how it's the best situation for everyone concerned. Religious people, non-religious people, just everyone in a country, that the government doesn't poke its nose in your private business. Here it is. Here, Thomas Jefferson, and this is from the Statute for Religious Freedom, dated 1779. So this is before the actual Constitution came up. The prescribing of any citizen as unworthy of the public confidence by laying upon him an incapacity of being called to offices of trust and emolument, unless he profess or renounce this or that religious opinion, is depriving him injuriously of those privileges and advantages to which, in common with his fellow citizens, he has a natural right. Now this, of course, specifically refers to a constitutional provision that's in there that says there's no religious test for public office. And yet what's kind of become sadly ironic, of course, in recent years is that it's almost become an unofficial requirement of people running for public office to profess this incredible devout religious faith. Bush and Gore both played the religion card very heavily. John McCain played it. Republicans, and that to me I think is really, really cynical, because now what these guys are doing is they're exploiting religion just to pander to the voters and to get votes. And I think that's more disrespectful of religion than it is respectful of it. But anyway, we have some callers lined up, so we'll see what they have to say, shall we? Let's start with Manny on line 1. Hello, Manny?
Yes.
Hi, you're on the air.
Hey,
how are you doing?
Show, man.
All right, thanks. What's up?
Well, first thing, let me say something. You know why I don't go to church?
Why is that?
Because God doesn't go to church.
Okay.
Just want to say that.
Okay.
I wanted to know, I started going to AA and NA meetings, because I have to. And they are all God-based. And I wanted to see if anybody knows of one that's not.
Okay, you're talking about Alcoholics Anonymous?
Right.
Okay, yeah.
I actually heard somebody talk about that a while back.
We've had that case occasionally.
Similar thing.
Yeah, the whole 12-step program.
Right.
Which is all about, it's don't take that drug, take this one. I understand there is an organization that I know of called Rational Recovery.
Rational Recovery?
Rational Recovery, which helps substance abuse, people trying to overcome that, and it uses a secular model. And so that's one that I know of. I believe there's another one, but I don't know it by name.
But
Well,
here
you may
in
want.
Austin, right?
I'm sorry?
Here in Austin?
I'm pretty sure they have an Austin chapter, as most of these do. What I would recommend doing is if you have web access.
I do.
Okay, I don't know if they would be under rationalrecovery.org or .com, or maybe you can just go to like a search engine like.
Just go to Google and do a search for
Yeah,
something
Google
like
or
that.
Yahoo, and just type in rational recovery and see what comes up.
Okay.
Okay.
I really appreciate that.
All right, yeah. Well, you're very welcome, and thanks a lot for your. And if you ever.
Well, one more thing.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
What you were reading earlier,
Mm-hmm.
or what your buddy there was reading about Hofstadter,
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
is that available? Can I get a copy? Is it going to be on your site?
I might be able to mail you the link or something like that.
Okay.
Mail the
Yeah.
webmaster a link. I'll have to look it up. I'm sure I've got it at home. I just have to look it up again and find it.
Yeah.
It
I
drives
might
me,
be able to get it to Russell. And
it
get
drives me
posted.
nuts when I hear this stuff, that these politicians do.
Yeah.
And it went on a lot longer than that.
Yeah. Well, again,
I'd
it's,
like to read that.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
So.
It's well, as I said, it's political pandering.
Yes.
And I think that and that's more disrespectful, I think, to a religious belief than it is respectful to it, because it's very even a guy like Newt Gingrich, they've all come out at one point and they've blasted unbelief and they've blasted atheism and they've come out and saying, well, we need God this and God this and God the other, while they're all doing their dirty deals.
Of course.
And so it's very clear that they're just playing the piety card, so that they seem all righteous in the eyes of voters and they get votes. It's all done in self-interest. It's not done, I think, out of any. I don't deny, and I don't doubt that George Bush is a very serious Christian and is a believer and all that. But Bush hasn't actually been as bad about it, believe it or not, as bad as he's been, as a lot of these other guys, like Joe Lieberman and what have you. And it's all about getting up behind the podium and putting a big halo on your head and having the voters go, ooh, isn't he righteous? I'll vote for him. And so it's really out of self-interest, and it's really cynical, I think.
Yeah, to me, I've always said that they use this to, like my boss, for example, that I used to work for.
Mm-hmm.
She's really crooked, but she's extremely religious. And she can use this to justify all this stuff that she does.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It's,
Yeah, now, not all religious people do that.
of course not.
But it's, we want to make sure, we want to make it clear that, we're not making these unfair generalizations out there, because we'll always, inevitably we'll get an indignant caller saying, you guys
Right.
are so unfair.
Right.
But religion is a really handy tool for, folks in power to use, in order to kind of get an agenda across. It does provide an impetus, for people who are out there with, something that they want to achieve.
Many people are going to do whatever they want to do in life. It's just what kind of excuses are they going to throw at it? And if religion is just one of those handy excuses that they can use, then they'll use that. That's not to say that they wouldn't have done it without religion. It's just here's another push to say, oh, here's one more reason I could do it. And so,
It's their trump card.
yeah.
Yeah, in unison. All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot for your call, Manny, and best of luck at getting in touch with that. And let us, and in fact, call back, let us know what you find,
Okay.
because I think that would be good.
Yeah.
In fact, we should probably add that to our links page on our website for
Yeah,
people
yeah, that
looking
would be great.
for some sort
Definitely.
of,
Yeah.
Thank you
secular
very much.
substance abuse. We appreciate that.
Huh?
You take care.
You too. Bye.
Right.
All right. Well, nice fellow.
Okay.
And, right, well, let's move on
Might as well.
to Bruce on line 2. And, hello, Bruce?
Hi there.
Hey, you're on the air.
Just wanted to talk briefly with you. I've recently moved to Austin, came down in about August of this year, and I just find your show very interesting and thought-provoking. Not something that I get to see on cable access where I'm from, so it's
Where'd you come from?
from Ohio, from
Okay.
Columbus, Ohio. And my degree actually is in comparative religion, and I study it fairly intently, but
Cool.
also consider myself essentially a non-believer. So I have just found your show very very thought-provoking, and has given me something to look into here in Austin as I get to know the city a little bit. So I just wanted to commend you for the type of things that you're putting on the show.
Well, we appreciate that.
Yeah. Bagel shop meetings are always a lot like this show. Just a lot of in-depth people sitting around the table talking.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
Anything,
looking, if you're
so-
interested in meeting under other unbelievers, part of what the purpose of our show is of course to serve as an outreach to other unbelievers in the community. Just let folks know that, hey, there's a group of us in town, and we get together and we do stuff, and
Yeah,
And,
I've watched for probably 3 or 4 weeks now, and
Okay.
but every time that you talk about the bagel shop meetings, I've just not had the ability to write anything down. So if
No, I
you could
understand.
give me that information, I'm prepared this time.
Yeah, okay, sure. Well, of course, you can always visit our webpage, and that's at atheist-community.org.
Yeah. Okay.
And that has a map on it and everything else. But it's downtown. It's on 5th Street, a little place called Hot Jumbo Bagels. It's this tiny little bagel shop with an enormous high-rise condo, right?
Yeah, being built right next door.
Spang next door to it. But it's between Guadalupe and Lavaca Streets, and that's
Okay.
Sunday mornings. And yeah, we're certainly we're very pleased to have you in town, and yeah, I'd love to hear some of your your knowledge from your comparative religion studies. I'm sure I'm sure you'd have a lot to really inform us about and share with us.
Yeah, I just again, I appreciate your show, and we'll definitely try to get down there to a meeting.
Well, it's great to hear from you.
Great.
You take care.
Thanks.
Good to hear from you.
It's nice, yeah. I have heard around and about that our show was kind of unusual and unique among like atheist groups around the nation. There's not quite a group like that. There are a lot of excellent, more than you would think. Tons of very active and excellent atheist and agnostic and secular humanist groups all around the country. I've heard though that our show is a bit of a different thing going on, and so hopefully we can reach some other folks out there and inspire them to do their own little.
Yeah, it's always good to hear about, a group in Kansas or something like that, want copies of our tapes to show on their local access.
Yeah, it's nice.
Lets us know that we're doing something right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, hopefully through the nonprofit show on atheistnetwork.com, now with that, of course, being on the web, it has, that's potential to be heard worldwide.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, why Jeff wanted to move into that and do that.
Yeah.
Have the same sort of forum going on, but over internet radio. But anyway, yeah, so that's pretty neato. We have David on 3, so let's see what David has for us this morning, afternoon, evening.
Hello?
Hi, David.
There you are.
Hey, you're on.
How y'all doing?
What's up, dude?
I just want to say, man, I really love this show. I totally dig it. It's real enlightening, and I totally agree with you that America was never at one time a Christian nation. It's always been a pluralistic society. Yeah. There's never, no such thing as, a established religion or whatever you were talking about there.
Not one favored over any other.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I guess my question is, in your worldview, what basis or what standard do you have for morality, to judge things, to say?
Okay. Well, that's one of our frequently asked questions.
Oh, really?
Ashley, do you want to start or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
A lot of times, whenever you get this question, you always I've got to wonder if a lot of religious people always say, if you don't have God to tell you, or the Bible or whatever, to tell you this is right and this is wrong, then how do you know for yourself?
Exactly.
Well, just by looking at the world and looking at, what I would like others to do to me as kind of a model on how I should act to others. And basically it just all has to do with the fact that if I go and do something nasty, it's probably going to come around back to me.
Okay.
Not because, God instructed it so, but just because, if I go, knocking Martin off his chair, chances are he's going to come back up and get me. So,
in fact, we'll try that right now. There's our fact page, by the way.
Yeah.
The simple answer to your question is, of course, that actions have consequences, right? I mean, something happens and it has results, and you can pretty much see by your own, just through your own eyes and through your own experience that there are certain results that are harmful, and there are certain results that are helpful and beneficial, and the ones that are harmful it's pretty easy to tell that those are the bad ones that you want to avoid. Now, in my opinion, I'm an evolved being, and as such, I have an evolved instinct towards self-preservation. So, for example, in a situation where, like, you have a situation that's life-threatening or dangerous to safety, something that would cause physical harm or death or what have you, well, I don't want those things to happen to me. So it's pretty obvious to me that if it would be bad for those things to happen to me, it would be bad for them to happen to other people. And so, 2 and 2 make 4. And it's a very practical consideration. You can observe that actions have consequences, and you can act accordingly. There's one of the earliest one of the earliest writings on ethics, where Aristotle talks about what can be considered moral is that which leads to the greater good or leads to happiness, and I think that that's just a very practical response.
Yeah, I wasn't asking, because the person on the left, my left, he is right. Like, the question is really not, do we have to believe in God to recognize morality, or do we have to have some type of book to say that, we have to recognize morality? It seems to me that we are living, you and I a believer, you a non-believer, the guy down the street, we are living our lives we are living our lives as though if there is a objective moral law, in the sense that if let me say this, those guys that hijacked or Hitler, let's look at Hitler.
Who doesn't like beating up on that guy? He's a good
what he did in your worldview really wasn't wrong because he was head of the culture. It's just that
culture doesn't define right and wrong.
Exactly.
Culture is defined. It's
yeah. Here's where you're incorrect there. Well, first off, I mean, it's not who's in charge makes the rules. That's not really what it's all about. I mean, clearly, I think it's fairly clear what he did was wrong. What he did out of some very warped ideologies. And he did not have a very well-grounded, of course, moral sense, because his had been warped by, for example, anti-Semitic views that coincidentally had been handed down to culture. The European culture was highly anti-Semitic, and that had been handed down through years through some of the practices of the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church engaged in such, things as the pogroms, where they would, drive Jews out of particular areas of the country and drive, sequester them in little ghettos. They would have specific anti-Semitic policies. There's like one thing called the blood libel and host nailing, where the priests generated a great deal of anti-Semitism among their flock by claiming that Jews were these nasty, sneaky people who would go around and desecrating churches and kidnapping, little blonde Christian children and sacrificing them and drinking their blood and doing all kind of horrible things. Now, this, of course, is back in medieval days, right? So, nobody sensible believes that anymore. But what it did was it set up an atmosphere of anti-Semitism that just percolated in Europe for all those centuries. And so that's what you have when one's natural, I think, intuitions for self-preservation and for treating one another in ways that are not cruel. I mean, it is warped by an ideology that says, no, you belong to this group of people that's better than people who are in this other group. And consequently, you pretty much have the right to run roughshod over them. So that's where that came from, I mean, and that's where you have an ideology like the terrorists used, where they were able to sort of pervert this religious faith that they have. Although I'm not a scholar of the Koran, I have actually heard that there are passages in the Koran that says do away with unbelievers, but I don't know that for certain.
Yeah,
but these guys had a religious ideology that made them engage in behaviors that nobody who didn't have those warped ideas in their heads or didn't have those warped ideas planted in their heads would ever have done. I mean, even if it weren't crashing into the World Trade Center, you just can't get a guy to blow himself up unless you put some kind of weirdo, sick ideology in his head, because that runs completely counter to everybody's innate sense of self-preservation. I mean, a normal person is going to try to avoid dying, at all costs. That's just natural. Your body wants to survive. You want to survive. And so to do something like that, you have to have a pretty strong ideology and a really twisted ideology.
But what would make that wrong, though? In their view, it's correct.
Right. In their view, it's correct because they thought, okay, for example, in the terrorist example, they thought that they were doing something that their God, Allah, wanted them to do, and that by doing it, they had been told that they would receive this award by, spending eternity in heaven with 72 virgins, feeding them grapes and dates and what have you. That's what they were told. So that's why they thought it was right. They thought it was right because they were told that the God of their religion was mandating it. Now, we're not saying that all religion tells people that, but what we're saying is that this is one of these ideologies that can be perverted to a specific end and can cause people to do immoral acts that run counter to not only their own sense of self-preservation, but to any sort of thing, to anything that any person in a normal circumstance would consider moral, decent behavior.
Well, it would be contrary to your opinion, not their opinion.
Yes,
They obviously had a different opinion.
Sure, yeah.
And opinions and ideas and what's right and wrong
Is subjective in your worldview.
And it changes over time also.
No, wait a minute. I want to address that, but you go first.
But it changes over time. In the 1850s or whatever, in this country, it was the idea that, at least in the South, that slavery was okay. There's no big deal to that. Over time, the view came out, the counter view, that maybe you shouldn't actually keep other people as furniture and as slaves.
Yeah.
That idea eventually grew and spread, and people said, yeah, well, that sounds pretty good to us, and I guess that's right, and okay, now here we are. Eventually, 300 years from now, they're going to look back on our society and say, my God, people who actually wore jeans. What were they thinking?
Who knows? Well,
ideas change over time.
Yeah.
So.
Now, it's not just here. Yeah, I mean, that is a good point. I mean, culture plays a role in that we are all products of our cultures. To a certain extent. So there are ideas, and this is all memes. Okay, what Richard Dawkins talked about.
Mm-hmm.
There are ideas that are sort of like plugged into us just by virtue of the culture that we're in, and when we just grow up with these all our lives. And so you're right. And so there are certain cultural memes that were acceptable 100, 200, 500 years ago that by today's standards are appalling now.
Yeah, like witch burning. Like
exactly.
The fact that people burnt witches because they thought they killed people, but the fact that did our factual understanding change? The factual understanding whether or not witches could kill changed, but the fact that murder is wrong has not changed. You see, I would say that murdering innocent people is wrong no matter what country, no matter what time period you lived in. Now that presupposes objective morality, and if we have objective morality, we live in a theistic universe. You see?
How does that work?
Well,
because see, I don't see that makes any. How does having certain moral precepts, which may be considered to be universal, how does that situation become any more or less objective? In other words, how does having a deity change the playing field at all? It seems to me that morality is, shall we say, relative or subjective, whether there's a God or not. I don't see that the situation, because here's the problem with it, and this is a well understood philosophical. In fact, it's so well understood it has a name. It's called the Euthyphro dilemma, and it basically goes like this. If you want to say that morality is a thing, it came from a God. Our moral precepts, there are certain objective moral precepts that were handed to us by a deity. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of questions that you have to answer. Well, the main question, of course, that you have to answer, and there are a couple of possible answers to it, is where did God get these moral precepts from? Okay, either he just made it up, right? He just decided it's, thou shalt not kill, as opposed to thou shalt kill, or what have you. He just decided it, in which case, it's perfectly arbitrary. It's just as arbitrary as if George Washington or Thomas Jefferson had come up with it. Or he got these moral precepts from somewhere. He had a frame of reference that he applied when he was deciding his moral precepts. And that implies that there is another moral authority separate from God for him to have gotten that frame of reference from.
No.
So it doesn't really... Either way, it doesn't really make sense to say morals came from a God, because how could God have gotten them in any way other than human beings working and living together would have come by them?
I'd say that God is a... This is where... If God is... It seems like God would be a necessary being, which means if he is a being that really cannot be, then he cannot cease to exist. Are you familiar with the first principles? First principles of thought, like being is being, being is not being. It goes down the list.
I think therefore I am, that sort of thing.
No. But
the simple question is, where does if our morality if the source of our morality is God, okay? Mm-hmm. What was God's source? Where did God what was his inspiration, or what were his reasons, and specifically, where did he get his moral precepts from that he gave to us? Did he just come up with them out of his divine thoughts? If he did, then he just made them up, okay? And he, and then you have to ask the question, well, why these moral precepts and not others? Why wouldn't he have, if God had decided to say, thou shalt kill and thou shalt covet, thy neighbor's wife, then those would have been the morally acceptable behaviors and not otherwise. So the arbitrariness becomes a problem.
No, this is just like stuff like this. I'm just learning as I'm going. So
sure.
I can get this and run with it for a while and call y'all next week to get that. But
well, yeah. Here's where I let me recommend a couple things to you. And we'll go ahead and let you go because we do have another couple of callers to place. And that is that. Well, there are a couple of sources. There's a really interesting website called infidels.org.
Yep.
And they have a lot of essays on this subject, which are the secular and the atheist responses to Christian, claims of morality. Just give you a better overview of what the criticisms are of the theistic basis for morality. There's also an essay that I forwarded our webmaster a link to, that I thought was a pretty strong essay, and as I understand later on tonight, he said he liked it, so on our fact page he might put a link up to that particular essay as well, because I thought that was a good essay, talking about how you have morals and not a God.
Okay.
And so, have a look at some of that stuff, and then give us a call next week, and we'll talk about some more, because it's an interesting question. I do agree.
Oh yeah. Infidels.com. Do they still hold that Joseph of Arimathea stole Jesus' body?
I haven't read that.
Okay.
I don't know, but that's infidels.org actually, and my .com might get you there, but I know it's .org.
Is Frank Zindler still there? Austin Community College. Atheist.
I've never met a guy named Frank Zindler. So,
really?
Yeah, he may have been with a group named American Atheists, which we're not affiliated
I think that's
with.
it.
Yeah, but we're not affiliated with them, and I'm afraid I don't know him.
Okay, I'll probably give you a call next week or something.
Well, hey, dude, we appreciate you watching the show.
Yeah, I love it, man. See you.
Well, thank you. Have a good weekend. Yeah, see, there you go. I like these nice discussions with
Friendly people.
Yeah. Well, you see, it's all about the spirit of debate is alive and well
Yes.
on Cable Line. So let me see. We have a couple more. I just want to say now, of course, I want to make clear again to all of our viewers and all of our callers that I don't make the claim that religion makes people do bad stuff. Again, you hear us talk about like a Hitler with his little warped ideologies, and coincidentally, in the text of Mein Kampf, okay, he does say, and in fact I actually memorized this quote. I've read it so many times. He says, "In defending myself against the Jew, I am doing the Lord's work." That's a direct quote from Mein Kampf. Now, of course, this is a man who had these warped ideologies that allowed him to think, outside of the accepted norm. Right. But we're not saying that religion, makes people do horrible stuff like fly planes into buildings, but it's a belief system that can provide an inspiration and an impetus to do weird stuff that you wouldn't ordinarily do without it. For example, if you have no belief in an afterlife, and if you have no belief in, that there's, paradise with 72 virgins in it waiting for you, as nice as that might be, if you don't have those beliefs, somebody would have a really, really hard time, talking me into blowing myself up. Yeah. Much less crashing a jet aircraft into a building and killing thousands of other people. Be pretty difficult. So, so these are beliefs that can be manipulated to, to put people in a certain mindset to do wacky stuff. But anyway, we're going to talk now to Abdullah on one and see if he has an opinion on all this. Hello, Abdullah?
Yes, this is him.
Hi, how you doing? You're on the air.
I'm fine, how are you?
We're good. What's up?
I have a couple of questions. Actually, I can see that from the title you say atheism. Does that mean that you're not agnostic because you're so sure that God doesn't exist? I can see clearly how agnostic can be right.
Okay.
But I cannot see clearly how a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew can be right either, because, there is no proof for the existence of God, but on the other hand, there's no proof for the non-existence of God either, which is what you claim.
Well,
so I would like to know how you come about and say there is no God for sure.
Okay. First off, just to preface some of this, down here on the bottom, we have the fact page.
Yeah, okay.
You could try and go to that. It's listed on there. But apart from that, we are not saying that there is no God, period, end of story, I know better. We're basically saying that I don't see any really good evidence showing that there is a God. And so without a good reason, I'm not going to believe. It's the only logical thing to do. I mean, there's no reason to believe that there is, so there's no reason to believe that there are unicorns out there, so I'm not going to bother with it.
Yeah, see,
if evidence comes out tomorrow, if they say, look, here is a scientific, doohickey that we found in the desert,
or something
that possibly
Actually,
could not have come about without
Well, hang on a
God.
sec, though. I want to address the same matter. There's a writer named George Smith who came up with definitions of atheism and agnosticism that many atheists find useful. And essentially, the term agnosticism, as well as Gnosticism, pertain to what are the limits of our knowledge, human knowledge. And theism and atheism have to do with matters of belief. So so each term essentially addresses two specific different topics. So in a sense, you're right. I would consider myself an agnostic in that I don't claim to know for an absolute, incontrovertible fact that there is or is not somewhere floating around in the ether a deity of any kind. And I don't categorically reject the idea that anything that could possibly be called a god could possibly exist under any circumstances. Now, I'm an atheist in regards to specific gods of specific religions in the world. For example, Christianity. A religion, it's up to the religion to define their god. If a religion defines its God in a way that I don't think makes any sense or doesn't stand up to any sort of examination, or is just illogical or impossible, then I can say for certain, I don't believe that being exists. I think there's good reason to believe that being doesn't exist simply because he's been divined in such a way that he can't exist. For example, if you want to talk about a deity that is omniscient, that means he knows all. He's omnipotent, that means he's all-powerful. And he's omnibenevolent, okay? That means he loves everyone and he's all good. But you have this thing called the problem of evil. Okay, evil things happen in the world and in the universe. Bad stuff happens, folks die, there's lots of unfairness. You can't claim that this omniscient, omnipotent, and omnibenevolent God doesn't know about the evil because he's omniscient. You can't claim that he can't do anything about the evil because he's omnipotent. And you can't claim that he doesn't care whether or not evil takes place because he's omnibenevolent. So,
you forgot all wise, though.
I'm sorry?
You forgot the wise, the wisdom. Maybe there is a reason that he lets it happen so that, we learn. Or
any God who's omnibenevolent is not going to allow evil to happen.
And also, if he's all-powerful, I would hope that he could find a better way for us to learn his lesson of the day than to kill 30,000 people with a flood or a volcano or crashing a plane into a building. Yeah. So I'd hope that he would figure out a better way to do it.
Well, he could. If he's omniscient, if he's all-powerful and knows everything, he would have better ways to make sure that people learned their lessons about how to live good, beneficial lives without having horrible terrorist atrocities happen or natural disasters, floods. And
he's all-powerful God. He doesn't have to teach us anything. Just put the idea in your head. It's all it takes.
Well, coming from maybe you might have guessed it from my name, but coming from a Muslim perspective, I mean, or even, I don't know if Christians and Jews believe that in too, but we believe in heaven and hell. And, excuse me, there's a reward and a punishment for every single deed that you do. And so if you die, nothing's going to be lost, basically. Every single small deed that you do is not going to be lost. Well, anyway, apart from the fact of, morality, everything, that doesn't mean just because, you're right. I would rather know the truth, if there is a God or not, than, even something is so perfect doesn't mean that it's, let's say, if religion is perfect, it doesn't mean it's, that there's a God. But anyways, the reason, I'm a highly skeptic of religion, and especially Islam, of my own religion. That's because I know a lot about it. I don't know much about other religions. But
we don't know that. We admit that we're not really as up on Islam as we are about Christianity, because in our country, of course, Christianity it's the predominant religion. I grew up, I had a Christian upbringing, so I admit that I don't know a whole lot about Islam. That's why I try not to critique Islam specifically too much.
Well, I hope that you can. I really hope. I really hope that you can, because if you can learn about it and attack it, that would be really nice.
Well, it's okay, sure.
I really hope so. For your future, for your future episodes. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is, I have been a very, very harsh skeptic of my own religion, basically. And have questioned the idea that God probably does not exist, and I have looked into Islam a lot deeper, and me being a scientific, I mean, I believe in science perfectly. That's what I believe in. I mean, 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
So.
Well, remember, the term science simply refers to a process of inquiry. That just means you go out, you gather the evidence, you see what science is.
Right.
Science is just it's a process.
Exactly.
That's what it is, and it's a process that works.
Yeah.
Because it's just practical. If you want to, I wonder how this works. Well, let's go out and see. That's what I find. These are the results I get.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people don't understand science, often mischaracterize it. They claim that it's almost as if it's sort of a competing religion where it has its own tenets and its own dogmas, and it insists that you can't believe. Well, science doesn't. I don't think science really says one thing about a God one way or another.
No,
Science is simply out there to find out how the world works. If scientists are to discover like absolute direct evidence of a divine hand in the workings of things, then that would be the scientific results that we would have, and that we would have to work from that point on. So science is completely indifferent and neutral to questions of whether or not there is in fact a supreme being. Many scientists are not theistic for the simple reason that they haven't found this evidence, But science is often fundamentalists in various religions often mischaracterize science as being this thing that's anti-religious when it's really not.
Right.
In fact, I think science really doesn't have anything to say about religious belief one way or another.
No, I know.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that. Actually, what I was about to get to was is that science founded even made me a stronger believer in my religion, or made it more convincing to me when there were some scientific, what do you call it, in the Koran and what have you. I don't know if you're familiar with the Sunnah, which is
I'm not.
Hadith and all that. But anyways, yeah, that's what made me believe. Now, how could the Prophet Muhammad would have known that 14 centuries ago?
Well, can you give me some specific passages, and we'll make a note of them and check them out?
Sure. I don't know if you can just go to Yahoo, I think, and type Dr. Keith Moore.
M-O-O-R-E?
I'm sorry?
M-O-O-R-E?
Yeah, N-O-O-R-E. And embryology, anything that has to do with it. He's a Canadian doctor, Canadian embryologist, and the son of a really highly regarded priest. And but he said that he was really surprised about all the findings that the Prophet Muhammad that he said about embryology and the stages of embryology, and he was surprised by that. But that's not the only thing. There are some other ones, like for example the Big Bang Theory. Of course, you can always twist around. You can find the verses and twist it around. But there has been this. There's a famous Muslim scholar that gathered all these verses from the Quran and then showed them to scientists, astronomers, famous scientists, and showed them and said, "What do you think of this? What do you make of this? And then asked them, how did Muhammad, know all this, 14th century ago?"
Right.
And
well,
so,
okay, I know what you're getting at.
Yeah. So please, my request is if you can look into that.
Sure.
And I would gladly, because I would like to know if this is,
Yeah. Now I know I know of examples of what you're talking about going on all the time in Christianity. I know that there are. There's a. And I'm not saying for certain that that's what's happening here, but it does sound a lot like. You'll often find that when Christians who have an agenda to pursue, for example, they want to prove that Noah's Ark existed. So they'll go out and they'll dig around on these mountains in Turkey and they'll find a bit of wood and they'll say, aha. There's a process that's called retrofitting by which you can pretty much look at events that take place either in scientific findings or in newspaper headlines or this, that, or the other, and attach them to ancient scriptures and say, I see that, this looks very similar. How interesting. It doesn't necessarily prove anything. I think that, you have to look at all of, the available information that you have. It wouldn't surprise me if there are perhaps scriptures in many ancient texts, so the Koran, the Bible, maybe some of the Hindu texts, some of the texts from the Far East, where you can see principles that sound that can be interpreted in such a way as that where they sound as if they jive with current scientific knowledge about a particular thing. That doesn't necessarily prove that that is what it is, or that it was originally intended or written to be interpreted that way. But again, you have to look at all the factors. So we'll go ahead. We'll definitely check out. I will go and check out what you this Dr. Moore. But I'm just saying that what it sounds like, though, at the outset, what you're talking about, is the kind of thing that I hear Christian creationists do all the time, which is they'll look at certain current scientific findings and they'll say, well, that doesn't really go against the Bible if you look at, whereas 6 weeks ago they were saying, oh, well, this is completely wrong, and then, the facts come in and they're pretty irrefutable, and they say, well, when you get right down to it, it doesn't really contradict what the Bible says, because what the prophet so-and-so really meant was this. I've heard, I've seen biblical scriptures. I had an email exchange recently with a guy who tried to use Ezekiel as an argument in favor of the existence of UFOs. Because that wheel within the wheel and spinning in the air and all that. Well, see, that's a lot like what these UFO sighting people are seeing. So really, so UFOs do exist, but they're actually angels. So people who claim to be sighting UFOs today, they're really seeing angels. And it was this weird. I'm not saying that like what you're suggesting is anything remotely that kooky. Okay, right. But what I'm saying is that... No,
I can see what you're saying.
Yeah,
I can see how you can take something and fit it to what you want to see.
But I do want to... But I want to know more about what you're talking about. So we will go and we'll go online and we'll look up more.
Yeah, because there's a lot of... I've seen a lot of people attack. I don't want to use attack, but analyze, I guess, or criticize Christianity. But I would like also to see somebody criticize Islam, because it is a very the fastest growing religion right now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I admit that because of recent events, obviously, I've been finding myself wanting to know more about it. We never used to focus on it too much during this program, simply because the Christianity being the majority religion in this country, it gets most of our attention. But I think that it's appropriate for us, in light of recent world events, maybe we should become a little bit more educated on Islam and what it's all about, and so that if we can have criticisms of it that are actually based upon knowing what the heck we're talking about.
Yeah.
Ashley, do you have anything else you'd like to?
No, that pretty much covers it.
Okay.
And we have. I'm sorry. Yeah. Do you have?
Yeah. Since some if you have other information, you can go to our website right there, and click on our email link and just send us the stuff. Send us links to stuff that you think we ought to read.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we'd be happy to.
Do you have in Austin? Do you have a gathering where somebody can discuss these kind of issues, or is there a group or? Well,
we just our gatherings are pretty much open to. We're sort of our bagel shop meeting is really only for unbelievers. Because we want those to be social circumstances where unbelievers can get together and just not have to. Have a believer show up and, kind of, try to work on it.
Do they usually heat up that much?
Well, we've had some of it, yeah. But we just want to have kind of a religion-free zone every Sunday morning where atheists can come in. But we do have, here's what we do have, which is on our website, we have a series of mailing lists. And one mailing list is called the Ask List. And that's specifically for believers to join and sign up. And then, hit us with information and questions, and we'll have a back-and-forth conversation. And so that's a good sort of online discussion thing, and that's also really easy to do because we can take time to look stuff up and then get back and have informed responses, and then vice versa. And it
doesn't require getting up on Sunday morning.
Yeah, and there's this show. This show is our public outreach. Unfortunately, we don't really have regular get-togethers with believers. I just don't think there's really that much of an interest.
Because there's interfaith dialogue.
Sure.
Maybe you should. I don't know. If you want to.
Yeah. Well, we've thought about it and thought about various ways, and the mailing list has proven to be be pretty practical for us.
Because if you don't communicate with other people from other points of view, you might never reach out as fast. So maybe it is a good idea to reach out, to.
Mm-hmm. And that's a big reason for
other
this
than people who think like-mindedly like you.
And that's a big reason for this show, it being a call-in and such. There was a time a while back where, for various technical and logistic reasons, everything like that, it was all tapes for several months, about three or 4 months or something like that. It was a hard time, and I really didn't care for it back then because since we weren't getting call-ins, we had to kind of run on the idea of this is what Christians think and this is what Christians want and believe and do and everything like that. And we really don't want to do that because you go to church and they'll tell you the atheists are bad because of this, that, and the other. The last thing we want to do is come here and say the Christians are bad because of this, that, and the other when it doesn't apply.
Yeah.
We have to actually talk to them and let them call us, tell us what they believe, and then we can talk to them on that.
Yeah, you can't
We're not going to determine what they believe.
You can't have a valid criticism that's not based on facts.
Yeah.
Or what, is really going on. Because you don't want to straw man arguments. Bad idea. Yeah. Anyway, Abdullah, we really appreciate your call. It's been very interesting, but the show clock is ticking, and we got a couple other guys to get to. So you take care, all right?
All right, you too.
Bye. Wow, this is a smart kid. He sounded young. Don't mean to be insulting, but he sounded like a young man and very well educated. So anyway, we got a couple other guys lined up. The phone. If you keep trying to call, I know if it seems like our calls go on for a while, we want to give people an opportunity to say their piece and to have like in-depth discussion. And we don't want to do like so many of these call-in shows where it's all down to sound bites, right? And everybody just gets a minute and they don't get their point across. And we also don't want to do like we've seen a lot of the fundamentalist Christian shows do, which is the minute they say something that, where you say something that angers them or they don't agree with, they'll just cut you off, So we want to be fair to everyone and give everyone this sort of forum to
debate
help
and
out.
dialogue.
Exactly. We have Chris on 2, I believe, is next. Chris?
Yeah, how you doing?
Hey, you're up. Thanks for waiting.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment and clarify something. You had a caller on there a couple callers back about he went to NA and AA and said it was God-orientated. Well, it's really not true. The 12-step programs are spiritual in orientation, but it's more or less steering you toward a higher power to grasp the concept that, there might be something greater than myself that can help me stay clean or whatever. Me, I'm neutral. I don't believe. I guess I'm a non-believer. I don't buy into it because I don't see no scientific proof either. I mean, I've read the Bible. I've read the Mormon Bible. You're going to have to show me some hard evidence, buddy. I mean, I'm sorry to say that.
That's just common sense.
But I went through the 12 steps, and the reason why I went through them is for myself. I had two choices: jails, institutions, or death, or lead a better life. And
well,
I
we're
don't
happy
have to
you
go
made
to
the good
church
decision.
for fellowship. The only reason why people go to church or they go to NA or AA is for fellowship.
Sure.
You don't have to go to the places to have a relationship with a higher power. A higher power to me is anything that can prevent me from causing physical or mental trauma to myself.
Sure.
My dog comforts me at night. That's a higher power to me.
Yeah.
People are higher powers to me because if I need help doing something, no matter what it is, I might have to ask for advice or something. That's helping me. So you're smarter than me. You're a higher power than I am. That type of thing. That's the way I look at it.
Great.
Like I say, show me some hard evidence, buddy.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't buy into all this. I've been both directions, so I'm pretty much neutral. When you die, you die. That's it, boy. This is all you're going to get. I don't believe in all that shit on the other side. That's just the way I feel about it.
Well, we're happy that you came out of your, recovery well.
Yeah, 36 years clean.
Excellent. Well,
And that was
congratulations.
because of NA. I did it for myself to see what it was about.
Yeah.
I had a girlfriend that was in it. And,
So there was no. So you did NA or AA?
I went to NA because NA doesn't distinguish between alcohol or drugs. Anything that's mind-altering is considered a drug.
And there was never any. You were never put in a position where you were uncomfortable. Like were there ever any like prayers recited or anything?
No.
Okay.
They went through their normal 12 steps. They explained the situation. And you got to do these little readings, but it's just basically to explain the program.
Okay.
The reason why I chose NA over AA is because AA is strictly alcoholic, and they don't, want the NA people in there for some reason. But NA does not, distinguish between anything. There's always a chair open for me. So if I find myself in a position that I'm going to get into trouble in some way or another, or I need to talk to somebody that is familiar with it other than my family, I can go to one of these meetings. They're all over town.
Sure.
And that will help me stay clean or whatever. Or, hell, there's a lot of nice people out there, man. I mean, there's executives out there all the way to the lower individuals, the criminals. And, I mean, there's all walks of life to go to these meetings. You meet some very nice people there.
Great.
So anyway, that's all I had to say. I just want to clear that up. It's a spiritual program, NA and AA. It's not forcing God down your throat.
Okay. Well,
a higher power is whatever you choose it to be.
Okay. Well, that's a good distinction.
Okay.
Don't you have any opinion on?
No, that was it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you making that distinction and clearing that confusion up. But of course, we do want folks just to let folks know that there is also the Rational Recovery Organization, which, just in case you want to make sure that you're getting the secular approach, it's another option out there for folks. But we appreciate hearing about, you sharing your experiences with us, and we're happy it turned out.
All right, thank you very much.
You take care, man. Bye. All right. We'd like to remind all of our viewers, unbelievers in the crowd, about the bagel shop meetings, 10:30 in the morning on Sundays. Hot Jumbo Bagel Shops, all sorts of yummy bagel and, cool atheists to talk to and what have you. And so let's see. So who's next on the line then? Juan on one. Is this our Juan?
We don't want to release him.
Yes, we'll find out. That's our click. Don't want to hit that button. Hit the red one, Martin. Hello, Juan?
Yes, this is the ACA Juan.
How you doing, man?
How you doing?
Good to hear from you. What's up?
Just something brief. I heard a caller ask to that the program criticized Islam or the Muslim religion or whatever, that he needed to hear some criticism as well. Well, if you bear with me just for a second, one time I was really curious about Islam, being labeled as the fastest growing religion and all that. And I really took it, to task to read the Koran and read, of course, the English version, And my overall impression of the Koran was this. My impression was that I was reading the life and the doings of the ancient Catholic Church when they were at the most oppressive time in the medieval times. The Koran and the Muslim religion are oppressive, totally oppressive, and demand absolute obedience from its followers, and makes them kneel down and put their forehead on the floor 5 times a day, which is ridiculous. And it is so oppressive. It's incredible. Anyone looking to switch religions certainly wouldn't want to switch to that one.
Okay.
Because, going from a very pluralistic and freedom-seeking religions, all the denominations, that the people that fled Europe to come to the United States and looking for religious freedom, et cetera, within the Koran, there is no freedom whatsoever. I mean, what these guys did during the 9/11 terrorist attack and all that is very, very consistent with their writings in the Koran. It's just that was my impression, and I took the time to read every single word of the Koran, as well as when the time that I read the Bible twice to look for things, and the Bible is so very, very clean compared to the Koran. I mean, it's just it's not that I'm favoring the Bible over.
Are you saying that there are specifically passages in the Koran that mandate like the murder of infidels?
That in words.
Okay.
I mean,
well, we want to know we'd like to know specifically what those passages are. Because we always try to if there's tricky scriptures in the Bible, for example, we want to be able to quote them.
I don't have the Quran near me anywhere because I don't keep those books near me because I don't consider them relevant to my life.
Right, because what we're seeing though in a lot of these mainstream
impressions and filling the need of this one caller. That he wanted to hear some criticism. Well, there is one there.
Well, sure, okay, but we want to make sure that we know. We want to be able to point to our. Yeah, we want to be able to point to the specific references when we have them. So we'll try to do a little research this coming week for next week's show.
Yeah.
Did you want to?
No.
Okay.
But generally, if you're going to find anything bad in a religion, I mean, every religion is like that, pretty much. Christianity, at least, you can look through the Bible and find, really nasty stuff in there too.
Oh yeah.
And so the last thing I want is to make it look like we're trying to pick on some religion over another because they're the ones who are just in the news right now.
Right.
Right. No, I am totally cognizant of that. I mean, I understand what ACA is all about and what our goals are and all that.
Yeah. But we do want to make sure though that when we do point out these sorts of, because of course what we're hearing over all the mainstream news programs, like every mainstream news program in the world, especially all these talking head shows on cable news, they get these imams on or these Muslim, religious leaders, and they say, what happened on September 11th has absolutely zero zip zilch to do with Islam. Islam, never said, doesn't say kill anybody, doesn't say this, doesn't say that, and they're very sure of themselves. And of course, and the mainstream news, of course, wants this sort of feedback because they don't want to give across any information that they're condemning this faith in its entirety for the actions of a bunch of lunatics. But at the same time, like for example, as we always point out, in the Christian perspective, whenever there's something objectionable about Christianity and some Christian says, hey, look, that's not what Jesus or Christianity is all about, we're able to go, oh, really? And then we read some quote from Scripture that's kind of uncomfortable, and then we kind of hear them attempt to respond to that. So, again, we just want to make sure that all of our criticisms are on sound footing, and this is not about attacking people as individuals. It's about, putting a belief system under the light of scrutiny and trying to determine whether or not this belief system is worthy of belief, that it's a good and valid belief system, and based upon what it has to say about itself. Juan, we're down to 4 minutes, and I want to try to get another caller in, so appreciate hearing from you always.
Thank you.
You take care. Bye. Okay. Who's next?
Chris.
Chris on 2. We'll go ahead. And I want to thank all our callers for holding. I know the phone lines can be tough to get through. Our callers are phenomenal. We have great viewers, and the viewership is just exploding, and we appreciate that. And we're really happy, so just keep trying if you're not getting through. Hello? Yeah. Whoa!
Whoa, dude.
Turn the TV down.
Okay, I think you're feeding back on us big time.
Yeah, I am, man.
Okay, there you go.
I'm turning it down, dude.
All right.
I just want to get back to something y'all said that.
Okay, well, hang on. It's still... Okay, do you have a mute button?
Me?
Is that your television?
Yeah.
Okay,
that sounds
much better. There you go.
Sorry about that, dude. I just want to go back to something y'all said about the church, that... how if you're a Christian or a Catholic, they fight amongst each other at all times. Y'all gave a lot of showed me a lot of respect that y'all don't do that. 'Cause I had that. I was studying with the Catholics, and the Christians got mad and said, "No, don't do it that way." And then here comes a Jehovah's Witness. I study with anybody, They said, "Don't do that." So when they decided they're gonna make a big old circle in my house to prove each other wrong, So I said, no, that's not going to happen.
Okay.
That was an event I would like to see.
Yeah, I think I backed off from it,
Yeah, that's a celebrity death match.
I don't want to go there, Red, for real. Another thing, because like you said, you don't want to, push that issue too much.
Sure.
And another thing I was going to say, though, but the only thing is that bothering me, about the evil stuff that's going on, more evil, it's just a lot of shit going on, a lot of stuff going on out there, like all these exorcisms and stuff. I mean, what do you think about that?
You mean like the guys on TV who do this thing and...
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about that they claim that there was an exorcism at one time. They had to do it in Texas because of that.
Oh, right. Well, I have an opinion on that. Ashley, do you have an opinion on that?
On the general exorcism budget?
Yeah.
It's a little bit wacky, and like I say, it can go too far. As our news said, pastor blames demon for woman's death. Things can go a little bit
This guy in
wrong.
Australia, New Zealand, who essentially trampled a woman to death in the course of... I think that it's one of two things. It's either you have guys like Bob Larson, okay, who is a complete con artist. Okay, he's getting out there and he goes to these, he goes on tour and he does these seminars in these hotels, which are these big public exorcisms, and they're all staged, and he's like, "Oh, demons out," and the thing, and people are like, "Ah," and then everyone in the audience is going, and then he says, "Okay, now whip your checkbooks out and buy my books and buy my videos and stuff like that." That's a big con game.
Yeah.
Do I think that there are people who genuinely believe in demonic possession? Sure, I do.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off, guys.
No, it's fine.
Between the both of you guys, me included, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to be in a person that's like that? In a room with a person that's like that?
You mean an exorcist or somebody who's...
Somebody that's like that, dude.
That needs an exorcism.
That might need one?
Yeah.
Well, if... It depends on what they... I would think that a person who was in that kind of state or behavior or state of mind would need to be in a hospital.
Not where they're at.
Yeah, they've got some sort of chemical imbalance or something wacky going on in their minds, and they're all messed up in the head, and they need medical help. We're out of time. We appreciate hearing from you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for your call, and we hope to hear from everybody again soon. Who was that? Okay.
There you go.
I want to thank, here's some really cool websites. Hit skeptic.com.
Yep.
There's something to view about exorcisms on that, Skeptic's Dictionary. Thanks to our stalwart crew. Thank you to my co-host, Ashley.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, hopefully we didn't go on too long with that one guy. But tune in next week, 4:30.